All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. Today is Tuesday. Got the one and only Ghost of Base Patrick Henry sliding in here. Gordon, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, Brian. How are you?
I'm living my best life. Another day above ground, so cannot complain. It would do no good if I did anyway. So here we are.
Sorry, I was just quarantining my dogs so they don't start barking like sitting next to me.
I have to do the same thing. If my cattle dog is not in the room with me, he will bark at every single object that moves in front of my house. And so I know the pain. I know the pain.
Yeah, for sure. But man, a lot of crazy stuff happened in the news, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. We're going to unpack all of it today. If obviously put a lot of emphasis on the geopolitics today, since we've got Ghost here. The Department of War did a press conference this morning. I got to catch most of that. I got a little clip here that we'll play from that. But before we do all that, guys, if you have not done so yet, please smash that thumbs up button. Helps us out tremendously. And let's also go ahead and talk about our first sponsor of the show. This episode is brought to you by Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil, omega-3s plus astaxanthin. I can never say that word. Astaxanthin for heart, joints, and memory. 73 miles off the coast of Antarctica waters, in waters so clean, virtually untouched by human pollution, lives a tiny organism that researchers believe may be one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory nutrients ever discovered. It's called krill, and today's sponsors figured out how to get it to your door. If you've been taking fish oil for heart, joint, or memory support, here's something you need to know. Research shows that fish oil is 50% less absorbable than krill oil because fish oil's omega-3s are in triglyceride form, where krills are in phospholipid form, which is the same format that your cell walls are made of. That means krill oil gets into your cells immediately. In head-to-head studies, krill oil outperformed fish oil at improving cholesterol, reducing inflammation, and easing joint pain, often at lower doses. Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil is sourced from pristine Antarctic waters, contains the powerful antioxidant astaxanthin, and it comes in a tiny little soft gel capsule, no fishy burps. Learn more and grab your Badlands special discount plus free shipping at getkrill.com/Badlands. That's GetKrill.com/Badlands. I got to try me some of that stuff right there because I used to take omega-3s and the fish thing really bothered me, so I stopped. So if we can get the omega-3 benefits without the fish oil, I am all in.
I pre-recorded the choice yesterday with Ash, and said the same thing. Like when I was a kid, my mom used to make us take the fish oil things, and yeah, the fishy burps are very real. So that's a great ad read to address that.
Absolutely. All right, and then let's talk about some soft disclosure.
Every Easter, one brave bunny takes on a very important mission. Spreading Easter joy. And apparently dropping most of it. And sometimes there's goat-related complications. Skincare so good even the goats might want it. Because Easter is really about the greatest victory ever. Hope, renewal, and a promise kept. And every soft disclosure purchase supports 6 small American businesses working together. Use code GRACE for 15% off. Soft disclosure. Good for your skin. And apparently approved by Ghost.
All right.
It's a great ad.
Softdisclosure.com, promo code Badlands. That is
Our marketing team just keeps killing it, man.
They do. They absolutely do. All right, so let's jump into the first story. So yesterday we reported Artemis 2, the pilots, or the astronauts, I should say, had arrived in Florida. And today we get confirmation that they are a go with 0 technical issues reported ahead of Wednesday's historic moon launch. That would be tomorrow. 4 astronauts will fly around the moon for the first time since 1972. Liftoff is set for April Fool's Day. And this is not an April Fool's joke. Or is it? So we're going back to the moon, first time in 54 years, Ghost. 54 years. I mean, since then, like, just think of all the technological advances we've had as a society since 1972. Just like, seriously, put that in front of mind here. 1972, we still had the phones that had those cranks, right? And you had to pay like $1.50 for long distance calls. Well, it wasn't $1.50, but 10 cents a minute, whatever, for long distance calls. And we still had 1-800. Well, we didn't even have 1-800 collect back then, but where you'd be like giving the message real quick, like, please state your name. Mom, it's me. Come pick me up. You remember those?
Dude, did that when I was a kid at the swimming pool. It's like, collect call home. Hey, Mom, I'm ready to get picked up. Come get me. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I still think we had to collect calls because Pink Floyd has what's that Dirty Woman song? Ooh, need a dirty woman. At the end, he's like, calling collect from America. And he's like, they're not here. But just think of all the advances.
That's deep lore. I like that.
Yeah, just think of all the advances, though. I mean, we now have cell phones that have more computing power than the entire first moon shuttle. But here we go. Finally, 54 years going back. I love it. Yeah, I don't have anything else on that. I don't know what time the launch is, but if it is during Badlands Daily tomorrow, we will definitely pull that up, the live stream for that. J-Ham Stoneface gifted 5 subs. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. We don't see those at the end, so if I see them in and Smay corrected me. That was Roger Waters, not Pink Floyd. So thank you for that, correcting me on that. Okay. Any other comment on the moon mission on April Fool's Day?
Well, I think there's a common theory among like the truth community that we never went to the moon, and that like the moon landing was faked and a hoax. Which I think there's a lot of evidence to support the idea that the footage that was shown to the world in 1969 was done in like a Hollywood studio. I think there's a lot of compelling evidence to support that. Now, does that mean we've never gone to the moon? I don't think so. And does that mean that we went to the moon once and we've never been able to go back because we don't have the right technology? Or did we go to the moon and we've been there ever since, and they've told us that we haven't been able to go back because they've classified all the technology and they don't want us to know that we're up there doing things? I mean, I basically entertain everything between that and the idea that like space is fake and the moon is fake. Like, I entertain all the different theories because I think all of them, it would just be wise to entertain everything. Now, do I give the same weight to every single theory? No, but I look at all the different possibilities. And the fact that we're going back to the moon now, I mean, I just think back to all of the things that General Kwasa said, particularly last year at Deadwood, when he got up and said, the 2 things we should be looking for is news about space and energy when it comes to like the Sovereign Alliance and international cooperation, that kind of stuff. And so I just wonder, are Russia, China, and America going to be teaming up for moon stuff? It seems like that's where this is all headed. And maybe even Iran will be in there, maybe even Saudi Arabia and
Canadian on there.
Mexico and Colombia and Venezuela. And it's like, we're going to put everyone in a fun little rocket and we're all going to go to the moon together, like a David Bowie music video. It's going to be like Maduro, Kim Jong-un, like all the friends are going to be there.
Ground control to Major Tom.
And when we arrive, like that's where the Witsec people all are. Everyone who's been killed off and been sent away to the island is waiting for us right there on the dark side of the moon. So I jest there at the end, but I'm serious that I think that this is probably where this is all headed. I think the golden age and all of it is going to be a new epoch in human existence, and that's going to require not the dissolution or the evolution beyond nation states, but rather the idea that nation states are going to be far more cooperative and are going to kind of put aside kinetic warfare. I think there'll still be other forms of conflict, but kinetic warfare, I think, is going to be more and more phased out because it's just not it's a cost prohibitive exercise. And we're learning that right now with Iran. I mean, that is something that is even the pro-Trump MAGA analysts understand that this is a very cost prohibitive war because they have very cheap drones that they can send over, and we have to send up very expensive missiles that take a long time to build to knock out each one. And that's just not, it's cost prohibitive. It's the same issue we ran into, by the way, in Ukraine against Russia.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just real quick before I address that, because me and Alpha had a conversation similar to this probably about 5 or 6 months ago. It was Pink Floyd. I don't know why I trusted SME 60. SME 60, your fact checking has been revoked. Your authorities have been revoked. Kind of kidding. You know, it is actually Pink Floyd. And I should have known this because the two songs we just mentioned, Bowie and Pink Floyd's Young Lust, I played on my live stream, my premium live stream gaming on Sunday, and was rocking out to both of those songs because I love those two songs. And they're both relative to this story. Well, the Pink Floyd, not the Dark Side of the Moon is, but yeah, so it is Pink Floyd. Now, to your point there about, you know, kinetic war being prohibitive, me and Alpha talked about this with the AI race and everything else that we're seeing. What does that look like in the future of kinetic warfare? And like you said, you're making these Patriot and Iron Dome missiles to intercept drones, essentially, that like Rubio said when this whole war first kicked off, we're making 6 or 7 a month, they're making thousands, and you can't compete at that level. And so I don't know if you saw, did you see the story from Associated Press today about the Germans saying Ukraine builds their drones out of Legos?
No, they saying that now. No, they can't actually be saying that. Is that a real story?
I shit you not, dude. I've got this story pulled up, but I'll just tease it to you.
This is the best timeline. We are living, of all the possible timelines, this is by far the best one.
Ukrainians tried German defense boss for jibes about Lego drones made by housewives. Yeah.
Well, and the Ukrainians are accusing the Germans of doing this.
No, the Germans are accusing the Ukrainians of doing it.
Holy shit, this is so funny. Because the Ukrainians are now in the Middle East trying to sell that stuff to all the Arabs. They're like, hey, we have because where this is going, I mean, if you just game this out from like a game theory standpoint, where this is going is that the way you deal with these drone attacks, and frankly, these missiles maybe, is by building drones of your own. And then a drone flies up and meets the drone and they both blow up in the sky. Right. And then eventually you're just going to have drone swarms against drone swarms just running into each other in the sky and blowing up. And basically what you're watching is just the world's most expensive fireworks display with no like damage done at the end and nothing accomplished. And that's what's going to make the whole thing cost prohibitive. And then from a practical standpoint, you're going to be like, all right, we're at a stalemate now. So what do we do now? Well, I guess now we need to figure something else out. And that's where I think we evolve out of, again, it doesn't mean there's not going to be violence. There's not going to be conflict in the world, but I'm just saying from the nation state level, at the highest levels, you're not going to get another World War II of like conventional trench warfare from World War I, or the kind of combat, small squad combat that we saw in World War II. I think it's going to be something different. There'll be other forms of conflict, but yeah, I think that's where it's headed.
That was the point me and Alpha made on that show when we were talking about AI on the battlefield, is that when you take out the value of human life in warfare and you take out the cost of losing U.S. soldiers, Russian soldiers, Iranian soldiers, Jewish soldiers, Israeli soldiers, when you take that equation off the board, you take away the human connection that people have to war, and then it just becomes a cash cow for the military industrial complex at that point. And if you don't observe, the value of the money that we're spending on these things, right? This war's already cost us $20 billion. They're saying cost us $20 billion. It cost the Israelis only $6 billion. But when you have to start factoring in the financial cost, I don't want to say more than the human cost, because obviously human life is, more valuable than any amount of money, but human life is being taken off that chessboard, right? It's being taken off of the, off the battlefield. And the more and more that's taken off, the more and more we become desensitized to war. And we're like, okay, this is no big deal. We're just going to watch, like you said, the fireworks show. And that's going to perpetuate the military industrial complex for the foreseeable future, unless we reel that in somehow. And I think what Trump has done with the tariffs and financial and economic sanctions and economic leverage has been kind of the pivot to the next phase of warfare, whatever you want to call it, 6th, 7th gen warfare, being more economic than it is, kinetic, hands-on, boots on the ground.
Yeah, well, it's a great point. And so let's just game this out. Let's just finish the game theory. So how do you then disincentivize the military industrial complex from doing what you're describing, which is basically just constant cash flow into their coffers from us, the taxpayers, and then they build drones, they blow the drones up, and they're personally getting super rich, and it just goes on and on and on and on forever and ever. How do you stop that? Well, here's how you stop it, in my opinion. This is just one possible solution. First of all, you get rid of the tax system, so you're no longer extracting energy from the people, right? And you shift to a tariff-based system where these corporations, the same ones that are building these drones and making the defense contractors, the military industrial complex, are paying a premium for selling this stuff to the U.S. government and maybe even other governments, because they're all going to do the tariff system too, or they have been. Then, right, we get our arms around this whole government spending situation and we cap it. We say, all right, here's your budget, period, paragraph, you're done. That's all you're getting. You're not getting more money every time a war happens or whatever. This is it. Make it work. Okay. Then you introduce new technologies like, hey, we're going to the moon. Hey, we're going to space. Hey, look at what China and Russia are building, like space battleships. They're making all kinds of this technology that Jim Quast, I think, has been teasing to us, the stuff he's been talking about on Sean Ryan's show and his show and all of our shows. Russia and China are already producing that. They're already working on that. So are you going to keep spending money making drones to go blow them up in the sky against Iran? Or are you going to go compete with Russia and China and make the new technology that is going to take us to the next epoch of human existence, the golden age? And I think all the incentive, again, we're just incentive-based creatures. The incentive and the economy of efficiency is going to shift to that, and it's going to flip to that, because they're not getting more like additional money to go make drones anymore. We're capping it. That's what I think the game theory would suggest. And again, the net effect is then, just like with the airplane, just like with the iPhone, just like with every other like leap in technology we've seen, the military kind of leads the way, like, because they're doing it for national security purposes, et cetera. And then there's a rising tide lifts all ships, where the technology becomes available commercially to the rest of us. And that's going to make cheaper energy. That's going to, make food production more affordable and widespread. And again, standard of living goes up, not just for Americans, but hopefully for the world, and everyone benefits.
I like the theory. I like the theory. We could hash that out a lot more. But we got to get into some news. Maybe that's
sure.
That's a whole nother show in and of itself. We'll get Ghost on another episode of our show, of my show. We did last week, and it was fantastic.
That was awesome. That was a fun conversation. Yeah, and I think 2 weeks from now, it's the week after GART, I'm going to be on General Quast's show on Space Revolution. So that'll be a fun. I really look forward to that conversation.
Excellent. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this story here, because this one's been getting a lot of clickbait headlines, and I'll tell you what, I had to do my due diligence on this story, and I did it, and it's fascinating what I found. So Daily Mail put this out: bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk did not match rifle allegedly used by suspect Tyler Robinson, new court filing claims. That headline is utterly, categorically false. That is not what the court filing claimed. It says the bullet that killed conservative commentator Charlie Kirk may not. It's funny how they go from did not in all capitals to may not. What a clickbait. I mean, it's Daily Mail, right? They get the broad surface level of facts correct, and then they put their own British spin on it. So, take them with a grain of salt, but also they get you in the right direction sometimes. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
So it says the bullet that killed conservative commentator Charlie Kirk may not match the rifle used by suspected killer Tyler Robinson. A bombshell new court filing states Robinson is facing capital murder charges, potential death sentence. But his defense attorneys now argue that the Bureau of ATF was, quote, unable to identify the bullet recovered at autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied to Mr. Robinson. So when I saw this headline, immediately I'm like, duh. Right. Anybody with half a brain that watched the shooting, I've broken this down many times, and I've put this out there, and the op on this is crazy, Ghost. So I put a post up yesterday on CannCon the Great. He had a post up about this, and I put something up in response saying, that I don't believe this the case and whatever. And I basically said the same thing I said on my X account. I got railed in his comments. You're retarded. You don't know how gun ballistics and blah, 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 quote unquote Marine and like all this shit. And I'm like, bro, I've lived and breathed firearms for almost 20 years now. Now, I'm not educated in college or anything on it, but I've done ballistic report.
I mean, dude, forget that. I don't care about those kind of credentials. I care about field experience. And it's like, do you have like the 10,000 hour rule? Like, you're an expert when you have spent 10,000 hours doing it, and that's you.
Yeah, 10,000 hours. Yeah, I would say I probably have that. But just looking at the evidence that's been presented, right? The 30-06 that was stopped by a 5-inch neck with an adamantium spine, vibranium, whatever you want to call Charlie Kirk's magic spine, the magic bullet. No exit wounds. It's fragmented. Okay, if it fragments, it should disperse into different directions, which would mean there's a path. It's going to take the path of least resistance. It's going to get an exit wound. We didn't get an exit wound. So if you don't have an exit wound, you can reconstruct bullets. Now, it's not always definitive when you reconstruct a bullet, but you should be able to get. I haven't even seen. This is crazy. I haven't even seen an official report that it was a 30-06 round that was recovered. That hit me yesterday, and I went scouring. I signed up for the Utah court docket so I can read all the filings and all that, and I can't find anything where it definitively says it was a 30-06 round.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to report on that because, again, it very well could be out there. I'm not saying such a report doesn't exist. I'm just saying I haven't seen it yet. There's allegedly a 4-page ATF report on the bullet that I have not been able to obtain yet. So. Yeah. Here is what the actual document says. Let me open this right here. What the court filing.
It's good to have.
Yeah. So it says here, reading from this paragraph, regarding the firearm evidence, the defense has been provided with an ATF summary report, which indicates that the ATF was unable to identify the bullet recovered at autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied to Mr. Robinson. Now, that just means that they can't definitively say the striations and the lands and grooves on this bullet match the rifling and the rifle that whatever it was. I think they said it was a Mauser. I can't remember they originally said it was a Mauser. Then they said it was a Remington 700. I believe. I'm going off the top of my head. Either way, they can't match it. That doesn't mean that it's not the bullet, as the Daily Mail says. It says the state also indicated that the FBI is in the process of conducting a second comparative bullet analysis, as well as a bullet lead analysis, and that these analyses are not yet complete. So is this good for, Tyler Robinson's defense? Absolutely. But is it the bullet did not match? Because the bullet did not match. Let him go. He's free to go. You have no evidence at that point that he did this. But saying that the bullet, doesn't, they can't definitively say whether it does or does not match is good for him, but it's not the, kind of the deal.
It's not the silver bullet in his defense.
Not the magic bullet.
Pun intended. So I heard Zach last night on Baseless Conspiracies and he has a fair amount of knowledge when it comes to firearms. He was describing this kind of analysis as kind of junk science and saying that that the courts are shifting away from this. I've seen other people give similar analysis. I don't have enough knowledge base in that realm, the forensic science realm of it, to be able to competently say one way or the other. I've heard that before. I've certainly heard that before, that some of the analysis that makes its way into court isn't necessarily as foolproof science as is presented by the quote unquote experts. That's its own discussion. again, just tend to focus more on like the human behavior when it comes to all my analysis, most of my analysis. And so I look at what are the people saying? What are the people involved? The characters saying? And right now, like there's just this full court press to like address this development and like shift the goalposts and move the goalposts by all these people who, some of whom might be operatives, acting on behalf of like interested parties. Some of whom I think are just people who have like influencers who've been caught up in the like in the whole like in the current, and basically have adopted this position that they feel like they need to defend because they don't want to lose face, lose credibility. Right? They're in a take bunker basically. But what they're saying now is they're saying that, well, this isn't full proof, like you said, and they're right. But what you're saying is right as well. This is a significant blow to the prosecution. This is a very significant blow. It's circumstantial evidence. It doesn't prove definitively that he didn't do it, but when you take the full context of the evidence that we have publicly and look at it, it's like, damn, this is beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm not seeing that, not from what is publicly available. And what Jack Posobiec and Andrew Colvett and all those people who claim to be Charlie Kirk's friends have said is that they've seen the evidence. They've seen the which is bullshit. No, they haven't. Nobody's seen that. If they have seen it, then the prosecutor screwed up because they shouldn't be running around showing that to everyone. That's going to screw up the trial.
That's a good segue into the next part of this, Ghost.
Okay,
I did read the entire filing. So this was a motion to vacate or continue the preliminary hearing. And so a prelim hearing is essentially an evidentiary hearing. The state comes in, presents their evidence. The defense comes in, presents their evidence, and the judge decides whether or not this is going to go to trial. And, again, going back to what we've said this whole time, the bullet, right? And a lot of people are saying, well, 30-06s can easily just, hit the spine and go down into the body. It's very, 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 very unlikely that happened. And people, last night when I was posting this, people are saying, well, why don't you post your research? And I'm posting YouTube videos.
Source.
Since this happened, there are hundreds of YouTube videos. TRP says frangible. Even frangible ammo. I posted a video yesterday where they took 5 different types of frangible ammo, 100 yards out, shot ham bone, ham neck, with a cinder block behind it, put a good sized leg bone. I don't know which bone specifically it was in front of it. And we're able to penetrate through the bone, through the ham neck and the cinder block with frangible ammo. That's the softest ammo that's literally designed to fragment as soon as it hits something. And it's still the 2,800 to 3,000 feet per second, 180 grain bullet, 160 grain bullet. It will penetrate 6 inches like nothing. It will take your spine, which is held together by, I don't know the medical
cartilage.
Cartilage, essentially.
Yeah,
there's an actual medical.
There's tendons, there's cartilage, there's meat, but I mean, it's not titanium.
It's going to blow it right out. It's going to blow it right out.
Titanium. It hit soft tissue. It hit like the softest tissue there is, right? I mean, God.
So then you also take into consideration the guy that was filming above Charlie Kirk, that you hear the audible gunshot, and as he pans to Charlie Kirk, you see the black figure halfway across the rooftop in less than 2 seconds. Less than 2 seconds from the shot. Now remember, they told us he disassembled the rifle after he shot it. That he disassembled it, and that's why you don't see this big long ass rifle when he's jumping off the building, because he disassembled it.
Yeah.
So,
well,
a master school trained United States Marine Corps sniper, one of the hardest programs in all of, it's one of the hardest programs in all of the military, could not pull that shot off, disassemble a rifle, and be up and running halfway across the roof in 2 seconds.
It just seems physically impossible. And again, this goes back to the human behavior. Like these guys, Jack Posobiec, Andrew Colvett, all of like the TPUSA people have been coming out and shaming people and screaming at them and bullying them and saying, don't you dare even consider any alternative theory. It's this guy. We know it's him. He confessed to it. And by the way, the sheriff who took in the confession resigned yesterday. I don't know if you saw that, but the guy who like brought Tyler Robinson in and got him to confess.
Resigned. Yep.
Yeah, he resigned. So I mean, that's pretty damning. Like, okay, well, maybe we should go talk to that guy. Yeah, I mean, dude, this is the prosecution's falling apart like in real time, and it's again, the burden of proof is not on Tyler Robinson to prove his innocence. The burden of proof is on the state to prove that he did it beyond a reasonable doubt. And again, I just don't see it. Like, unless there's some secret evidence that they haven't shown us yet, from what's publicly available, there are way too many holes in the theories to say definitively that this kid did it and that he didn't have any accomplices, or he's not being framed, or whatever. There's all these different alternatives that aren't being considered. And I go back to like Joe Kent, what he told Tucker Carlson and others, that he was blocked, that the counterterrorism team was blocked, that they had social media posts days before Charlie Kirk was killed of people openly saying that Charlie Kirk was going to be killed, and that they like clearly had advanced knowledge that Charlie Kirk was going to be killed, and they weren't allowed to run any of those down. They were blocked and told, nope, we have our guy. Don't run any of those down. What the fuck?
Yeah. So that to the point you made earlier about, all these influencers online saying we've seen the evidence and there's tons of it. The defense hasn't even seen the evidence. Just let that settle. So either it's prosecutorial misconduct by sharing evidence with podcasters without sharing it with Tyler Robinson's own defense, or you haven't seen jack shit. And that's why Andrew Colvett, which me and Ash played last Wednesday, him coming out and say, don't let Joe Kent testify. You want this guy to get off? He did it. Why would you
want this guy to get off? It's like,
he said that. He said he did it. Why would you want Joe Kent to testify when there's buckets of evidence that this kid did it, and you're gonna try and get this guy off?
Yeah.
We have due process in this country. You have the right to present a complete defense. And if that means a government official testifying to the inadequacies of the report, which he was, firsthand knowledge to, the investigation, I should say, the inadequacies of the investigation, checking out those foreign ties. And again, I'm not making any claims here. Everybody's Israel did. I'm not making any claims here. I'm just looking at what we know, and it does not lead to beyond a reasonable doubt whatsoever. But listen to this, Ghost.
Yeah.
And and again, this is a 69-page filing, 28 pages of documents, and then you have testimony that you can read as well. I have not read the testimony yet. I've only read the 28 pages. And they write here, for instance, at the March 12, 2026 meeting, the state indicated that it intended to introduce the autopsy report into evidence without any supporting expert testimony. The autopsy report, completed on September 16th, 2025, was not produced to the defense until November 13th, 2025. The autopsy photographs taken on September 10th, 2025, were not produced to the defense until March 18th, 2026. That's 12 days ago, 13 days ago, that they finally got photographs that they took 6 months ago. And they're trying to go to a preliminary evidentiary hearing whether or not this case proceeds. They have very little in this case, I think, and they're doing everything they can to try and, kind of do the runaround on these public defenders, hoping that they're not going to, pick this up and Tyler Robinson. It seems like they're doing their job based on this report. They talk about the DNA samples they found, and that the DNA samples were minute, very small traces of DNA, but there were 5 DNA samples found, not just Tyler Robinson's. There were 5 other DNA samples, and the process that they go through, calling that into question, saying it's not admissible in court. It's very interesting what's going on with this case.
Yeah, and like these quote unquote friends of Charlie Kirk, who, their behavior is very, very strange.
Yes.
Like, they're running around basically saying, don't look here, don't look. It's like, you remember the pictures of the guys in Philadelphia who were putting the boards up on the windows at the election office, like at the election headquarters, when people were trying to look in to see what they were doing, and they were like blocking their view. That's what those guys are doing right now. And it's very suspicious. It's like they don't seem actually interested in figuring out who killed their buddy. They seem very interested in making sure that this guy goes down for it, regardless of whether or not he's actually guilty. And by the way, everything they're doing, when you combine that with what you just read, I think that's a pretty compelling argument that this whole thing has been, there's a ton of prosecutorial misconduct happening, and basically the jury pool is cooked. And how can this kid get a fair trial now? He might get off on a technicality now because of what these guys are doing, because they're basically going out there and prosecuting him in the court of public opinion and trying to convince the entire public that he's guilty before the trial even happens. Oh, and by the way, they're not even giving his defense team the evidence that they have, so the defense team can at least come up with their own counter narrative or start to formulate their defense. yeah, this feels like this kid is getting railroaded, regardless of how guilty he is. And to your point, it's a due process question. So if you really think this kid did it and you really want to see him go down for it, you're basically doing everything you can to make sure he gets off on a technicality.
Yep. Also, it was the TCF Center in Detroit that they were doing the pizza boxes, but you got the main point across there. Yeah. So again, I just want to see a fair trial for this kid. I want to see, and that's something that anybody in his camp that truly cared about Charlie Kirk should want to see. They want to see the right person locked up for this. And it's very, very interesting how they're coming out and saying, don't look here. We've seen the evidence. Trust us, and yeah, I don't know. And again,
I've stayed off this subject because a lot of it's become a sideshow. A lot of it's just become like a distraction thing. I think it's an important thing. I want to know who killed Charlie Kirk because it's a very important thing for our country to understand in order to move on and heal and like have catharsis. But the whole argument about it before the trial has just become like its own little shiny object. I had my own theories the days after. I even held off from like sharing them because I just didn't want to. I wanted to let things play out a little bit. I just wanted to be responsible with like, being too quick to share my gut instinct. But man, my gut instinct more and more is just looking spot on because this feels like a cover up for sure.
So I stayed away from this case for the most part, other than what we could see video evidence.
Y'all did forensic like bullet stuff. Like,
right.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But like the whole Candace Taylor or Candace Owens, Candace Taylor, that's the Georgia. I had Georgia on my mind. The whole Candace Owens thing. She ran for Congress, and I don't know why that popped up. But the whole Candace Owens things, like I've stayed away from all that shit.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, you watch too much Candace Owens." I was like, "Dude, I haven't watched Candace Owens in years."
Dude. Yeah, I mean, the hour before Charlie was shot, Matt Ehret and I did a whole show breaking history, and we were just railing on Candace because she had just come out and said that maybe the entire American Revolution was a psyop and it was really being run by occultists. And she learned this. She came to this conclusion after speaking to a Catholic bishop in London, a place that is like Anglican, like Anglican church, like not necessarily Catholic, but London of all places. And also reading this book that she posted. Now, in 5 minutes of research, I went and looked it up. And the guy's own Wikipedia who wrote this book, a lifelong relationship with MI6, where he's basically been working with MI6 his entire life. And it's like, okay, so an MI6 guy writes a book saying that the entire American Revolution was a psyop and all the founding fathers were Satanists. And now Candace is running with that. So I was railing her. Now, with that said, a lot of the stuff she's put out, some of the stuff she's put out that I've seen, I haven't like really followed it closely, is compelling. Like these text messages are compelling. But again, I want to see it all play out in a court of law where like all the evidence is thoroughly vetted. And it's like, so I don't have to sit there and do that myself. I'm going to let's let due process play out. These friends of Charlie Kirk, though, are basically making sure that that doesn't happen because this thing isn't even going to get to that point because it's going to be thrown out on a technicality because they're muddying the waters too much.
Yeah, and last thing before we move on, there's also, and I haven't read these yet, so I don't know if the judge has even ruled on them, but they're also trying to keep media out of all of the hearings and trials for Tyler Robinson as well. So they want this to essentially a state court, which is typically live streamed, viewable, watchable. They want it to be a federal court where nobody can see how the sausage is made. So. All right, let's jump into this story from the LA Times. Marine corporal accused of stealing, reselling weapons and ammo from Camp Pendleton. This is a really strange story. Corporal Andrew Paul Amarias is accused of using his position as an ammo tech specialist at the SOI West, School of Infantry West, at the San Diego base to access and steal military property, including at least one Javelin missile system, military-grade ammunition, and other weapons-related material between February of 2022 and November of 2025. Those dates are really interesting. He transported the stolen weapons and ammunition to his home state of Arizona, where he sold them to a network of co-conspirators and then resold the equipment to others. Where are the arrests of the co-conspirators? This sounds like an operation here where he's the supply guy. And then the co-conspirators are middlemen, knowingly engaging in the reselling of military-grade equipment. Even some of the rounds that he was stealing, the M855 rounds, they're not technically supposed to be selling the military issued ones. But the javelins for sure, you cannot sell javelins. I think you have to have like a class 10 or something to be able to sell explosives. And even then, I don't think a javelin, which is one of the most sophisticated, single shooter weapons that we have. And I'll get into that in a second here. The court documents include text messages sent between Amarillas and his unnamed co-conspirators. Quote, just got some javs and some other ones. Amarillas wrote in August, according to the criminal complaint. I have 2 launchers that I think you'd like if you want to take a look tomorrow. End quote. The text messages also indicate photos, including one of a Javelin missile system whose serial number matched one that he had signed out from the School of Infantry West. Javelin missile systems are portable anti-tank weapons also designed to destroy low-flying helicopters and other fortifications. Prosecutors say in one instance, Amarillas offered 30 cans of ammunition, about 25,000 rounds, to a co-conspirator. Over a roughly 2-week period, investigators say he stole 66 cans of M855 rifle ammunition, about a third of which has been recovered. He's currently being held without bail. So the strange thing, first and foremost, you don't simply check out a weapon system like a Javelin, and there's no accountability for that. The Marine Corps, everywhere you go in the Marine Corps, you do what's called an EDL, where you literally sit there and read serial numbers off of all of your serialized gear, your rifle, your NVGs, your PEC 15 on the end of your rifle, the ACOG that you have on top, your scope, basically. You're reading that. If you have, radios, comm gear, well, not so much grenades, because you just tell them that you have grenades. They're not serialized. But it's really strange that this guy was able to sign out a Javelin. This is an $80,000 rocket system that you're able to sign out and just drive off base with it, and nobody cares. We had NVGs go missing one time. I told Colonel Towner this on X yesterday. We had a pair of NVGs, right? Little monocular PVS-14 NVGs. I think they're PVS-14s that went missing. We were on base for 12 hours while they went through everybody's room looking for these. They were this close to locking down the entire base because they went missing. This was Camp Lejeune. They don't do that, I guess, apparently at SOI and Camp Pendleton, where at SOI they have stricter requirements because you're dealing with junior Marines that don't have MOS assignments yet. They're fresh they're not even in the fleet yet, technically. They're fresh out of boot camp, and they're still, training. So the restrictions on that are significantly more robust than in the fleet. You would think. Again, I'm speaking from my recollection from 15 years ago. The other thing is how significant this is, that Javelins go missing like this and that it can happen like that. The Javelin is an incredibly sophisticated system. It uses what's called a clue that you mount it on your shoulder. It's this big wide tube, and you take the clue and it basically takes a picture of what you're aiming at, and it analyzes and assesses that picture. And then when you fire the system, it launches this rocket straight up into the air. And then as the rocket's coming down, it uses that picture and identifies your target and hits your target. And it's so sophisticated that you can have 2 M1 Abrams side by side, take a picture of one of them, and it'll hit that one, I don't know, maybe 9 times out of 10. It'll hit the specific tank that you took a picture of. So this can be used for aircraft. It can be used for when I was in Afghanistan, I think we shot like over 25 Javelins, which a lot of tow gunners will go their whole career without shooting a single one. Our guy got to shoot like 19 or 20 of them. And
yeah, you told me that when you came on the Book of Trump, like that the tow gunner, it's like he had like a massive his kill list was very long, and all he had to do was just come out and shoot the javelin, and he goes back in his tent. It's like that scene in Troy where Achilles comes out and like kills the guy and then goes back to his tent, right?
That's what he used to do. He used to come out. He'd be wearing boots and utes. He'd put on his flak jacket, his Kevlar. He'd go up to Saber Post. He'd take the clue, put the clue in, get it warmed up, take the shot, and then go back and go to sleep. That's all he did all deployment. was shoot javelins and saber missiles, tow missiles. That's all he did. But anyways, the point is this significant? I mean, the ammo itself is very concerning. Where's this stuff going? Who are the co-conspirators in this case? right? There's clearly a middleman that he is stealing these items for,
Yeah.
handing
That's
them
what I'm
off to them, and then they're selling them on the market somewhere. And like, where are the arrests for those people? Because
Yeah. That I'm so glad you took it there, because that's exactly where I was going with it. Is that's what it feels like. It feels like this is I saw Colonel Tanner Watkins posting about this too. This feels like an Operation Gladio thing. This feels
yes,
like a regime change thing where does ISIS get all those weapons? Because like ISIS like has Javelin, like they have these missile systems that they shouldn't have. Where are they getting them from? Well, 10 years ago, the explanation was, well, they got them from Gaddafi's armory, right? They got them because all these weapons got stolen from Gaddafi's army, the largest private army in the world, which is why he was targeted. One of the reasons he was targeted. But 15 years later, we're 15 years later, and we're still working with the missile. Like they still have the weapon systems that came out of the armory bullshit. So where is ISIS in Africa fighting Burkina Faso and fighting in the Congo? Like, where are they getting all these weapon systems from? I don't know if they have javelins, but they have other stuff. They have Ukrainian drones. Like, we know that. So where are they getting this stuff from? Somebody's stealing it and somebody's giving it to them. And by the way, let's share my screen. Uh, this happened on Friday. Joe Kent gave an interview to Mint Press News where he disclosed formally that the U.S. was working directly with ISIS and Al Qaeda in Syria on Israel's behalf to topple Bashar Assad. This was like under Obama, which is something that we have speculated for years, right? Just using like the obvious data that's out there and just basic logic exercises. But now we have one of the highest formal intelligence officials in the Trump administration formally disclosing that, like formally saying, yes, this is what happened. This is, in my opinion, the closest thing we're going to get to like actual disclosure of this. Like maybe one day documents will come out like declassified. I don't know if those would be any more compelling than Joe Kent saying this right here. But the timing of this, on Friday he does this, and then this guy gets arrested, whatever, Monday for doing it. I don't know, man. I see overlap, and it wouldn't surprise me if we're going to learn that Al Qaeda and ISIS were using the weapon systems that were being stolen in this exact kind of situation, and then given to them. Because remember, the Pentagon has never passed an audit; like they can't account for anything,
right?
So they don't know where any of their stuff is, right?
So here was the interesting thing about this article to me, Ghost. Where does it in orange, where it says that he started selling the systems between February of 2022 and November of 2025? Those two dates are significant. All right. February 2022 is when the Ukraine-Russia war kicked off, and we started handing things over at the cyclic rate to Ukraine. Now, I don't understand why SOI West, a regiment that's training Marines, that's not, it's not like, why would it be passing through there if that's the case? Is this guy, a fall guy for something bigger? More systems that ended up going rogue and disappearing. I don't know. Maybe he might have been doing this. Who knows? But then November 2025 is when it ended. And that's when Trump was reelected. Oh, well, actually, no, that's a year after. Never mind. So scratch that. But it's weird that this all kicks off in November 2025. I think 2025 is that when we officially stopped funding Ukraine?
2025. I'm not sure if we even have officially stopped funding Ukraine. My understanding is that a lot of these funding bills were like over time. It's like, oh, they're not getting all this money today, but they're going to get it, incrementally over months or years. So, I mean, for all we know, we're cutting them checks today, but that could be stuff that Congress passed a year ago, right?
Yeah, we paused it in early 2025. It doesn't say a specific date here.
Okay.
So it's just, I mean, this is what happens when you have, just massive amounts of money, weaponry, and everything else being sent over to Ukraine. Now, here's what could have happened. Those weapons in SOI, they're not getting the best, right? In fact, when I was in SOI, we shot AT4s. We didn't even get to shoot the AT4. We got to shoot the 9mm aiming round. So with the AT4, you shoot a 9mm first, and you see where it hits. And that's how you know that your AT4 is going to hit that. You aim for that spot because the ballistics are similar in terms of velocity and everything else. And so we never even got to shoot the AT-4. We just got to shoot the 9mm round. I shot AT-4s in Afghanistan, but never in SOI. So SOI is getting kind of the leftovers. So I wonder if perhaps the leftovers from SOI, you know, kind of the worn down old equipment was being taken from SOI and sent over to Ukraine. And that's how this guy was able to finagle these systems away, you know, somehow in the chaos of, you know, going through all their weapon systems, they were able to push these off to the side and make them kind of disappear. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I'm asking from a position of ignorance because I'm not a veteran. But I know I've heard you tell stories, Alpha tell stories, others tell stories, and then just own speculation. I mean, there is like a commingling. There is like an integration to some level between the U.S. military and the intelligence community, like the CIA, right? I mean, like when you are deployed, you have a guy walking around and that is not an enlisted soldier. He's presumably CIA, right? He may not walk around with a name tag saying I'm CIA, but he's embedded, right?
Yeah. And just a quick correction. I said AT-4, Misfit 556 corrected me. Small, not an AT-4. And
okay.
I actually have this is a small tube right here. So this is what actually goes on the back of the small. And thank you for correcting me on that. All right, we can put that back. But so there we go. Okay.
But is that an accurate statement that when you're deployed, you have guys from the intelligence community who are not enlisted, who are not soldiers embedded with you at some point, sometimes?
No,
walking around like in region, like whatever. I mean, there's an integration to some level, not saying that they're like in the chain of command, but they would have access to facilities that have, or at least to personnel that has an armory, that has weapons, that has, I mean, they could be coordinating all this stuff. They could be like, you know, ostensibly injecting themselves and being like, all right, soldier, go gather this stuff and bring it to us. Right. I mean,
so we did have intel attached to us, military intel, like guys that donned uniforms, like War Marine Corps uniforms, Marine intel. Could they have been CIA? Yes, absolutely. Could they have been some sort of intelligence, DIA working, whatever? Absolutely. There's no question. We did have a couple intel guys that would rotate through our base, that would stay in the COC and kind of monitor everything, you know, give intelligence briefings to our captain and that kind of thing. As far as like CIA attaching the units, that's more like special forces, joint special operations kind of thing. Didn't really do that much with us at all. That we know of. Again, we had intel guys that would go out with us, but they were military intelligence and not openly CIA. So, all right, let's jump into this story. I want to kind of go through quick because I want to give Gordon as much time as he needs today. New York Post: mass exodus from Los Angeles revealed in shocking new figures. Los Angeles County recorded the largest population drop of any in the nation between July 2024 and July 2025, according to a newly released U.S. Census Bureau estimate. Roughly 54,000 residents left the county during that one-year period, marking a continuation of a steady slide for the nation's most populous county. Riverside and San Bernardino counties together gained more than 21,000 residents over that same period. Las Vegas saw an influx of 20,000. Across California, population declines are becoming more widespread, and a sharp drop in immigration is playing a role. Who would have thought a sharp drop in immigration playing a role in California's population dwindling? San Diego's county's population fell by more than 5,000 residents in 2025, reversing gains from the prior year. Census estimates show foreign arrivals in San Diego plunged by roughly 65% year over year. So from 2024 to 2025, 65% of their foreign arrivals plummeted. It's almost like closing the border, you know, stop the influx of people arriving at these cities in California. One of the steepest declines in more than a decade. Nationwide, the Census Bureau found immigration slowed in the vast majority of U.S. counties last year. Of more than 2,000 counties that experienced growth the year before, 80% saw that growth weaken or reverse in 2025. California has been particularly hit hard, with all 58 counties recording declines in foreign immigration, and 30 counties lost population overall, a sharp increase from 18 counties the prior year. And then lastly, a shrinking population, especially among working age residents, can translate into worker shortages, rising cost, and slower economic growth. What a load of garbage that is. Business owners in construction and service sectors report increasing difficulty finding workers, a trend they attribute in part to the decline in immigrant labor. No, they should attribute to paying shit-ass wages, driving up costs of everything, and not wanting to pay for, fair wages. Otherwise, that's why, you have immigration, unemployment rates, skyrocketing. And I'm not talking about the 4.3% that we see every time with the BLS. I'm talking about the people that have left the workforce, people that have found, other ways, whether it's getting paid under the table, drug dealing, illicit, jobs. When you see this immigration cut start to happen, especially in California, that's going to start not incentivizing, but requiring companies to start hiring American citizens to start doing these jobs. And guess what? If you're not competitive, you're not going to find the work. There's no more immigrant labor, slave labor coming over from across the border that's going to fill these positions for you. You're done paying people $5 an hour to stand on a roof and re-roof a building for you, or to assemble a building for you. And I know you deal kind of generally with that, but I'll land it there for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's no, I think you make good points. I think those are all good salient points, and yeah, I don't really have anything to add.
I mean, it's not like it's just common sense stuff. Like if you take away the source of their slave labor, their migrant labor, then they're going to have to adjust and improvise, adapt, and overcome if they want to sustain their business.
Yep.
Now, this is interesting that the California things come out as Just the News is putting out an old story. This is an old story. This is from, several years ago. James Comer says biased census miscalculated in the 2020, costing Republicans multiple House seats. Now, James Comer, House Oversight Committee chair, is saying that the census made estimations instead of doing a physical count during the COVID-19 pandemic, and estimated higher in Democrat areas like major cities and underestimated in the suburban areas that are known to be more Republican. Comer said California, New York, and Rhode Island should have lost more House seats than they did, and that Florida and Texas should have gained at least one new member of Congress because of the exodus during the pandemic. Now, I think Florida gained 2, Texas gained 2. So is he saying one more? I'm not sure. But the other big question with the census, and this is one that's just broadly addressed in this article, is illegals being counted in the census. And that has to go away for 2030 when they do the census then. But again, we've got that lap there, that overlap, of 2029 and 2030, where we're not going to have, maybe not going to have President Trump in office. We're not going to have, maybe we have a conservative president for those 2 years. But if we don't, they're just going to open the floodgates again. Mark my words. If President Trump is not president in 2029, and it's not a, staunchly vetted MAGA equivalent in that position, they're just going to open the borders. They're going to flood these countries again, so that when they run the 2030 census under intense scrutiny, they have that migrant population to bolster those numbers in their strongholds, California, New York, Illinois, counties and states like that.
Yeah, and and add to that, of course, that the conflict there's a domino effect happening here. The conflict is unfolding across the Middle East, right? You now have a pretty big war happening in southern Lebanon. There's fighting in Syria. There's reportedly fighting in Gaza and the West Bank. And all of those conditions create more migrants, like all of them, especially when you have NGOs on the ground with a bus waiting in a plane ticket and saying, hey, this way, this way, this way, right? And all it takes is getting them to the EU. And once they get to the EU, it's much easier to get them to the United States. Again, because they have ways of doing it. I mean, they have back channels. They have ways of getting people there. They can do it by the book. They can do it through human trafficking. But, if they want the people there, they can get them there. And again, the wars are what drive the desire for people to leave where they've lived for thousands of years or hundreds of years or whatever. Right. So again, that's the engine. It's a right wing, left wing conspiracy that is a uniparty, 1000% happening, uniparty conspiracy.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Before we move on, let's go ahead and hit a sponsor here real quick, and then we'll get into Eric Swalwell and the meltdown that he's continuing on. But first, guys, a little inside scoop that many creators are talking about behind the scenes. It's actually one of the reasons that we use Rumble, besides their incredible free speech platform. They made a way to super chat creators so that we get paid immediately and without any fees. YouTube and Twitch take up to 50% fees when you tip creators. This method takes none. That's right. The platform takes 0 fees. We get to keep nearly 100%, whatever you send to us as a super chat, donation, tip, whatever you'd like to call it. You can super chat with Bitcoin, Tether USD, or even Tether Gold stable coins. The tip will show up directly in our Rumble chat, and which we will always do our best to read. All you need to do is download the Rumble wallet in the App Store and send the tips to your favorite creators. You can also go to wallet.rumble.com or download it from the App Store. Seriously, what an amazing way to get rid of the middleman and help the creator economy. Shout out to Rumble for making this disruptive technology. And if you didn't have platforms like this, you guys would still believe not you guys, but others would still believe the Daily Mail that the bullet did not match. It reminds me of Natasha Bertrand's Hunter Biden laptop, Russian or former spies say Russian laptop is Russian disinfo or whatever. Yeah, that story. All right, let's get into Eric Swalwell freaking out on CNN when they gets called out about the DHS funding, saying, basically, you guys are doing this all just for show because ICE is already funded. So what the fuck are you doing? You're causing these massive lines at the airports. What are you doing?
Do you disagree with what I laid out there, that ICE has enough money, that there is enough money without the money that Democrats are objecting to? Because
that's why I don't want to spend more money.
Okay,
ahead,
but if they have enough, then how is it not just symbolic? Because at this point, you have a lot of people who are paying the price, right? A lot of attention has been paid to TSA. They, of course, are now getting paid because of the executive order, but it's not just them, right? Civilians in the Coast Guard, they are going without, many of them in California. How long should they be prepared to work without a paycheck?
It's not symbolic to a 6-year-old boy named Joseph in my district. A couple weeks ago, he and his family were arrested and deported, and he's deaf, and he goes to a school for the deaf, and ICE wouldn't even allow him to take his assistive hearing devices with him. They sent him to Colombia within days. My staff flew to Colombia, took the assistive living devices. So for Californians, this is
all right. Just pause right there. That's absolute garbage when you do that. Oh, well, this one person out of 330 million people in America, they took him away with his family. Was he here illegally? Yes, he was. They took him away with his family and they took away his assistive hearing devices. They didn't let him go with those. Were they taxpayer funded? Because, technically the government can't let him go with those. But we saved the boy and we flew down to Colombia and brought him his assistive hearing devices. Look, my heart goes out for the kid. It's got to be absolutely tragic being, deaf at that age. I couldn't imagine it. But this is a complete emotional ploy right here.
Yeah, it's emotional blackmail for sure.
It is absolutely emotional blackmail. Well, we're doing this because of Joseph, right? That one little boy in Colombia now. Shut up, Eric. Anyways, we'll keep going.
Anything but symbolic. It's real. It's present. And I cannot sanction what they're doing, co-sign on what they're doing, even, symbolically give them more support because these are people scared for their lives. And the solution was right in front of us. Do what the Senate did. Don't give them any more money, but fund everyone else like TSA. We can do that right now in the House of Representatives. Speaker Johnson should.
And how long do you think folks should expect this shutdown to continue?
It can end right now, Brianna. And the president, if he says he's paying TSA, who the hell knows? He doesn't even seem to believe in Congress anymore. He's in defiance of the Republican leader in the Senate.
Let me rephrase it. How long are Democrats prepared? How long are Democrats prepared to hold the line on where they are if there isn't a change from Republicans?
I will continue to support paying TSA. I cannot support more public executions or deporting more little children like the 6-year-old in my district who was sent without his hearing devices to Colombia. I'm not in for that, and most Americans aren't either.
Okay, again, another emotional blackmail. Hat tip to Overton News for that link right there. Here's the thing, and we'll talk more about this in just a moment, but Congress has a very specific duty when it comes to the Department of Homeland Security, right? They have the oversight over these bureaucratic agencies. So you do one of two things. You either fund them, which is, part of their obligation as Congress, not obligation, but their duty as Congress to determine whether or not they deserve funding, or abolish them. If you don't like ICE, abolish it. proposed doing that. Oh, we don't have the votes. Yeah, you don't have the votes. You know why you don't have the votes? Because you lost a fucking election. Okay, so get in line. When you have these people in the TSA lines, and again, I'm not a fan of DHS whatsoever, but it's the system that we've got right now. And to leave it upended like this, you are destroying travel plans, obligations that many Americans have. We played yesterday in your neck of the woods up in Maryland, a line going outside into the parking lot of an airport in Maryland. That's nuts, man. So one of two things, either get in line and fund it, shut up. It's already funded anyways. You're doing this purely to cause and inflict pain on Americans. ICE has $100 billion in their coffers. They're not going anywhere. So you're doing this specifically to spite Americans. Fuck you, man.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like I have a specific view that a lot of people think I'm a crackpot, and that's fine. But I think that there are a lot of different systems that are being targeted right now. The banking system is one of them. I have sauce to support that assertion that banks are being taken down, that assets are being frozen or seized. We saw Credit Suisse, one of the biggest banks in the world, the biggest bank in Switzerland, collapse in 2022, and then were a forced buyout by UBS that the government of Switzerland forced in 2023. And there's still an investigation happening right now by the Senate to understand exactly what the Credit Suisse bank possesses in terms of these secret accounts. Again, being driven largely by Jewish lobbyists who are concerned that they have Nazi gold and Nazi cash. That's really what has driven it. But now it sounds like these investigators have found other things too that are like drug cartel stuff, human trafficking stuff, whatever. But when it comes to this, I think Congress is being exposed. I think Congress is being fully exposed for the frauds that they are. I think the Republican Party is absolutely useless. It's why I don't support it. It's why I don't get excited for the things that they do. I don't really pay a lot of attention to it because I think a lot of it is just performative nonsense and like shiny object distraction. Again, I think I asked last week or the week before, what have they accomplished in the past 12 months? And I think the one thing you came up with was the Lincoln Riley Act. That's it. They haven't done anything else. And so while I agree with what you're saying, and I think that this is all like emotional blackmail, I think the whole thing is being exposed as a fraud. I mean, like the pictures of Lindsey Graham at Disney World right now, like the people on vacation.
Thunder.
Yeah, they're all on vacation right now, like enjoying their lives while they're getting paid what $5,000 a week. I think it is. Like they make like what $240,000 a year, something like that. That's $5,000 a week, if my math is right. Yeah, and they're basically just on vacation enjoying their lives while the average American is struggling to pay its bills. And now we're looking at gas going up, and they're not funding the TSA, so people can't even get on a plane and fly. This is a disaster. The whole thing's a disaster. TSA is a disaster that shouldn't even exist because of Patriot Act, but that's a different discussion. So
I agree.
I think there are a lot of conversations that I think this is generating and that are good that we need to be discussing. All the things that is listed out are different debates and conversations, but at the end of the day, I think that Congress is being exposed. I think that a lot of the hacks and frauds in the MAGA movement and the even within the Trump administration are being exposed. And it's all good. Like we should be leaning into it because friction is good. Friction drives discussion and conflict drives resolution.
Yeah. So this is the story that Ghost was talking about. Lindsey Graham not caught, but seen and photographed in Disney World. It says Lindsey Graham said he was doing business in Florida and just made a short pit stop at Disney World. But based on his new photo, he was a full-blown tourist while thousands of federal workers go unpaid. Lindsey Graham is strolling in the tangled area of Magic Kingdom on Friday, carrying a bubble wand. As for the bubble wand, it says an eyewitness tells us he was holding it for a little girl while she was in the bathroom. That's kind of creepy. Feel like we need some explanation on that because I don't think he has any kids.
He has no children and no wife. That's really weird.
Yeah. It says, as for the bubble wand, was holding it for a little girl while she was in the bathroom. Graham told TMZ he was at a meeting Friday with Trump officials in South Florida, and he went to Orlando afterwards to meet up with some friends. I voted 7 times to fully fund the government. Call a Democrat. Well, we just found out last week that you can pass the funding bill with a simple majority in the House. in the Senate, not even a simple majority, with five. Remember, they passed that first bill that they sent to the House. 5 people, a voice vote with 5 people. Now, they said in this last vote, Chris Coons stayed behind because they did a pro forma session yesterday. Well, let me get into that. And then I'll get ready to hand it over to you. I think I got, I'm going.
We'll do the Hegseth stuff too before we hand it over.
I'm going way off because I do have to cover this real quick. So yesterday we talked about Swalwell Kash Patel disclosing the decade ago investigation into Swalwell and Fang Fang. Washington Post, Eric Swalwell sends cease and desist letter to FBI director. If you had to guess, Ghost, 2 guesses, what attorney is working for Swalwell? Take 2 guesses.
Rod Rosenstein?
No. Think more mainstream defending Democrats.
Mark Elias?
You're so close, Norm Eisen.
Okay.
Attorneys for Swalwell demanded FBI Director Kash Patel refrain from releasing a decade-old investigative files involving the congressman's purported ties to a suspected Chinese intelligence operative. The congressman called for the FBI to agree within 3 days not to release the files, adding that any further action to release them could prompt him to take legal action. Swalwell's attorney said there was no justification for releasing the files, especially since the congressman had assisted the FBI in its investigation. Fuck all the way off. We don't have any. So the FBI investigated it. I cooperated it with it. It was also under a favorable regime, right? The Chris Wray FBI. Don't look at anything here. Ignore all of this. Okay, no. Actually, it wasn't under Chris Wray. It was under Comey, wasn't it? 10 years ago, yeah, it would have been under Comey, even more favorable.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, the congressman has never been accused of wrongdoing in that matter, and your attempt to release the file is a transparent attempt to smear him and undermine his campaign for governor of California, the letter said. Your actions threaten to expose you, others at the FBI, and the FBI itself to significant legal liability. Swalwell's attorney, Sean Hecker, and Norm Eisen wrote in Monday's letter that releasing the Swalwell documents would violate several laws, including the Federal Privacy Act of 1974. It would violate the First Amendment, they added, since it would amount to targeting Swalwell for his outspoken views about President Trump. They also warned against running afoul of the long-standing Justice Department norm that agents should refrain from taking any public investigatory steps against a political candidate in the 60 days before an election. And I just want to remind you guys that they literally threatened Trump with that with Jack Smith in 2024. Oh, we could put Trump on trial in the run-up to the 2024 election. We can do that. That's perfectly legal. Anyways, it's kind of insane, Ghost, that you have an undisclosed report, an FBI report, public information, right? It's our FBI. We fund it. The work product is our work product. It is our representatives that are being investigated. To think that the people of California don't deserve to know what was in that report about Eric Swalwell banging a Chinese spy while he's on the House Select Permanent Intelligence Committee is absolutely insane, that they shouldn't know what was going on there. And what's worse is the resistance to it. If you were found no wrongdoing, let the report out there. You should be encouraging people to read it and saying, see, I was sleeping with a Chinese spy and I still kept my little mouth shut. But I don't think that's what the report would say.
Yeah, I mean, people who are honest aren't afraid of the truth. They aren't afraid of scrutiny, and they aren't afraid of, especially if they're already like this. He's already in scandal. He's already been accused of like sleeping with a Chinese spy. So if he wasn't if he's innocent, to your point, it's like he should want the whole thing adjudicated and like to be exonerated, right? If he wasn't doing anything wrong, even if it is embarrassing, it's already embarrassing. So we're kind of past that point. You might as well embrace the embarrassment and, exonerate yourself and just allow the whole thing to, again, if he was innocent, he would be eager for people to like understand the full scope of it. But when people are dishonest and they're doing something, they know they're doing something wrong, they're going to, want to distract you and cover up scrutiny.
Yep. Jersey brand logo says kind of holy pedophile, and I think that's referring to the TMZ Lindsey Graham. The only reason I say kind of is because I have friends that have young kids that like if we were all out, they'd be like, "Hey, can you hold this?" And I'd be like, "Sure, I hold it or whatever." So I don't want to go and make those kind of it's still creepy. There's nobody else around him in that photo. Like he's not like with other people talking. He appears to be by himself in that photo.
Well,
And
there's like 3 days. Apparently, there's like he was there for multiple days, and there's pictures of him like people. Like I think there was somebody there like tracking him, basically like taking pictures for TMZ or whatever. And there's no evidence that he was there, like that. There's other people with him in every single picture. Like he's out at dinner. I mean, he does appear to be out at dinner with other people, but it's like, is he there with like a friend's family? And like, oh, okay, I'm just holding this for my friend's kid. I mean, that's actually a reasonable explanation, but I haven't seen. Not that I've looked into it super in depth, but I haven't seen evidence that that's what that is. That he's now it probably is. I mean, frankly, but the optics of this are so goofy and just like embarrassing for Lindsey Graham, especially in this moment, like where he's like he is the face of the Iran war basically in Congress. He's been the one out there thumping his chest, being like, "We got to do this no matter what." And now there's a picture of him at Disney World holding like a pink like princess wand. Like, I don't know. There's something about this that feels like a humiliation ritual. I don't want to go to the full like, oh, this is all scripted and like he's being forced to do this. Maybe. I prefer the game theory explanation of everything. That basically we are watching a soap opera that Trump has cast very brilliantly, where he has put all these people in place unwittingly, like not to their knowledge, inside of the government and outside of the government. When you look at figures like Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent, whatever. And this whole thing is just playing out. There's an orchestra that's playing now, and Trump's the conductor. And people are basically just acting in their own best interest and their own incentive structures. And the net effect, the net outcome is the humiliation of the establishment, the humiliation of the uniparty, and the exposure of its criminality.
Yeah. All right. So real quick, I just want to cover this very surface level. Bill Maloogian, the Senate just held a quick pro forma session and adjourned until Thursday. GOP did not introduce the House bill. The House passed DHS funding bill via unanimous consent. But if they did, Senator Chris Coons was here and told us he planned to object and kill it. Mike Lee put on X that the Senate just completed the pro forma session. No attempt was made to pass the funding bill. And then he says this is the Senate's second recess since the DHS shutdown. The Senate shouldn't have taken the last one right after the impasse began either, but it certainly shouldn't be taking this one, a 2-week recess, 40 days into the crisis. This is insane and inhumane. The Senate should fully convene immediately and debate funding proposals until DHS is fully funded. 14 days they're going on recess while we're going on recess. We all want to go travel, see our families, right? Easter's coming up. We've got GART. This will take it, almost to Labor Day. Memorial Day, Labor Day. I mean, these are all things we want to do, but no, not for you guys. They're going to skip lines, except on Delta. Hat tip to Delta, major hat tip to Delta. In fact, maybe that's what we should start doing, is calling out all the airlines to revoke any privileges that Congress and their staff have in moving through TSA lines. And then as something, Zach brought up yesterday, we pay a fee for TSA when we buy tickets. Where the fuck is that money going?
Yeah.
Right.
Good question.
Let's jump into the geopolitics here, and we could go over this story real quick, just because I thought it was, we brought it up a second ago from the AP, not a second ago, in the beginning of the show. Ukrainians chide German defense boss for jibes about Lego drones made by housewives. Senior officials in Kyiv are taking a swipe at the head of the German defense giant Rheinmetall, whose unflattering comments about Ukraine drone technology and the role of women in the war against Russia ignited a social media backlash. The chairman and CEO, Armin Paperger, likened Ukraine's development of cutting-edge drone expertise as like playing with Legos, and said the drones are being built by Ukrainian housewives. Quote, they have 3D printers in the kitchen and they produce parts for the drones. He said in a comment to the Atlantic magazine, this is not innovation. Zelensky, who is offering his country's advanced drone tech to Gulf countries amid the Iran war, described Paperger's comments as strange. If every Ukrainian housewife can really produce drones, then every Ukrainian housewife could also be the CEO of Rheinmetall.
There you go. That's the real story here. That's the real story. And look, this just lends itself to what I was just saying. This is humiliation ritual right here. Because is this story true or is it not true? I mean, I don't know. I can't possibly verify that, but it doesn't really matter. The net effect of this story is this is humiliating for the military-industrial complex. We're paying billions, if not trillions of dollars to the defense contractors to protect us, right? Like to provide national security to us. And the official narrative now is that housewives in Ukraine are using 3D printers to make drones out of Legos that are now being deployed against Israel in the Arab Gulf states to great effect. I mean, we're going to go over that in a minute. This is whatever's happening is being done very effectively. And this whole thing is super goofy. And I agree with that take that any housewife in Ukraine can be the CEO of Northrop Grumman or Raytheon. Rosie the Riveter, Ukraine style. Yeah, I mean, but seriously, why do we need these massive corporations if we can just get housewives in America to make our weapon systems for us?
Probably more effective too. A lot cheaper for sure.
Yep.
All right, so let's real quick. So President Trump truthed this out yesterday. There's no volume here, but this is a huge, massive explosion believed to be in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
You see all sorts of little tail offs there.
Yeah, that's how you know it's totally real and not AI.
Well, it could be. So here's the thing, and we'll play. You see like little things going off. They're claiming it was an ammo depot, and we'll get into that here in just a second. So I watched Secretary of War Hegseth's brief this morning, and this is what he had to say about this. And I thought this was interesting.
The video the president posted last night of Esfahan, an ammo depot struck by U.S. bombers. You see, you don't get to see many of those videos because, as a reminder, Iran has still shut off the internet to 99.9% of its population. But if Iran is wise, they will cut a deal. President Trump doesn't bluff and he does not back down. You can ask Khomeini about that. The new Iranian regime should know that by now. This new regime, because regime change has occurred, should be wiser than the last. President Trump will make a deal. He is willing. And the terms of the deal are known to them. If Iran is not willing, then the United States War Department will continue with even more intensity.
So regime change has occurred. President Trump is willing to make a deal. How many should heed that advice? A lot of little Easter eggs in that.
Yeah, there are. And there are a few other clips that I think that I just saw that I think are worth playing.
Well, do you have Trump on Air Force One?
No, I don't think I have that one. I mean, I have a lot of clips of Trump at Air Force One from this week, but I don't know what specific one you're referring
This one?
to.
This one where he's talking about Iran and
oh,
here we'll play this one.
Yes, I think I have this one. If it's the one I'm thinking of, but go ahead and play it.
All right.
Mr. President, deal in Iran this upcoming week.
Say it?
Sir, could you foresee a deal in Iran this upcoming week?
I do see a deal in Iran.
Mr. President,
Could be soon.
are you considering still putting boots on the ground, and would you do that without going to
I
Congress?
just have lots of alternatives. We have tremendous numbers of ships over there. We don't need them though because of the power. Look, I would say we're just like we're ahead of schedule on the ballroom. In a much bigger way, we're ahead of schedule with Iran. We're weeks ahead of schedule. If you would have said that in 3 days we were going to knock out 158 ships, their entire Navy, which we did, we knocked out their entire Air Force. We knocked out most of their missiles. That's why you see missile attacks when they're down to just sputtering. And we have a group, it's really a new regime. It's a group of people that we've never dealt with before, that are acting very reasonable. It is truly regime change.
Is Khamenei's son still alive, sir? Is he a part of these
We think he
conversations?
may be. Nobody's heard about him. He may be alive, but he's obviously very seriously in trouble. He's seriously wounded.
You had offered that 15-point plan to Iran. Did they ever come back?
Yeah, they came back on the 15-point plan. They gave us most of the points. Why wouldn't they?
You make it sound like they've made some concessions. Can you identify those?
Well, they're agreeing with us on the plan. I mean, we asked for 15 things, and for the most part, we're going to be asking for a couple of other things. And just to prove that they're serious, they gave us all these votes. When I talked about 4 days ago a present, I said they gave me a present, but I didn't think I was at liberty to say what it was. What it was 8 plus 2. It's 10 massive boatloads of oil. And today they gave us another present. They gave us 20 boatloads of oil. That starts being shipped tomorrow. We're having very good meetings, both directly and indirectly, and I think we're getting a lot of very important.
I love that. On the 10th day of Iran war, my 10
Dude, yeah.
boatloads
Yeah,
of oil.
Yeah, it's great. And by the way, those boats were all Pakistani flagged. So these are Pakistani tankers that were allowed through. Pakistan has offered to be the site of a meeting between Iran and the US. I saw that the Pakistani ambassador, the ambassador to Pakistan, or maybe he's the Pakistani ambassador to Iran, or maybe he's I think he's the Pakistani ambassador to the US because he was Pakistani, was on Brett Baer last night and was he said it's really hard to negotiate with the Iranians because we just don't know who to talk to because there doesn't really seem to be anybody in charge. It's almost like they don't have like a head of state or like a head of government. Keep that in mind as we move forward. But yeah, Pakistan's important in all this. It's worth noting that the prime minister of Pakistan loves Trump. Remember, he started crying in Al-Shabaab last year, September, when Trump went there and they signed the big peace deal. It was the big formal meeting that Netanyahu wasn't allowed to attend. And the one person who Trump, like all the European people got up and Trump was like, I don't know why all y'all are up here. Like y'all aren't even like part of this. And the one guy he allowed to get up and speak was the Pakistani prime minister who like started crying, being like, President Trump is the only person who can do this and is the most important person to be making world peace right now. He's like, I just love him so much. And Trump talks about how much he loves the Pakistani prime minister. So, this stuff is, it's fun for me to like watch it. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent.
All right. Before I hand it over full reins to you real quick, I do want to hit our final sponsor of the show. And let's go ahead and talk here. Have you guys ever watched the news or big game and thought, I know how this is going to play out? This guy right here, this guy does that all the time. I know how this is going to play out. Instead of just tweeting about it, you can actually put those predictions to work on Kalshi. Kalshi is a federally regulated exchange where you trade on real world events, not stocks. Think questions like, will inflation be higher or lower next month? Will the Fed cut rates? Or will your team make the playoffs? Each market is simply a yes or no contract priced between 1 and 99 cents. And if you're right, it settles at $1. That price is basically the crowd's probability of something happening. So if yes is trading at 75 cents, the market is saying there's about a 75% chance that it happens. You can use it to hedge, to speculate, or to put some skin in the game on what you already follow every single day. And right now they've got a special offer. Trade $10, get $10. Just go to kalshi.com/rumble, deposit and place your first $10 in trades, and Kalshi will give you an extra $10 to use on the platform. So if you've got a take, don't just post it, trade it. Go to kalshi.com/rumble to get started today. That's KALSHI.com/rumble. And on that note, Ghost, the floor is yours.
Okay, let's start with Hegseth because I think I haven't had a chance to watch the full briefing, and I will. But I have seen a few clips. So if you want to share my screen, he is reiterating what
Iran is not willing.
He is reiterating what Trump is saying, what said on the plane.
The new Iranian regime should know that by now. This new regime, because regime change has occurred, should be wiser than the last. President Trump will make a deal he is willing, and the terms of the deal are known to them. If Iran is not willing, then the United States War Department will continue with even more intensity. The new
Okay, so he's reiterating what Trump said. He said that that there's regime changes happen. Okay, take that for what it is, whatever it is, whatever that means. Then I want to go to this other clip where he says, where is it? Right here. I think this is right. Okay. So Trump said yesterday that the opening up the Strait of Hormuz actually wasn't really our problem and wasn't really our concern. He's kind of been communicating that in different ways for a while now. Here's Hegseth parroting that, and I think Dan Kane also said the same thing.
To address this threat of Iran, it's not just our problem set going forward, even though we have done the lion's share of preparation to ensure that that strait will be open, which is an outcome the president's been very clear on. As far as Russia and China, to address this threat of Iran.
Yeah, so he said that it was Trump at 6 p.m. yesterday, and then his admin this morning saying the same thing. And then the last one I'll play of him is this one. And this is an important one to keep in mind.
The president's been very clear on. As far as Russia and China, we know exactly what they're doing, what they are or are not doing. We don't have to air publicly what all of that is, but where necessary, we're addressing it, we're mitigating it, and we're confronting it head on. I don't know.
Okay, so the question was, what are y'all doing about Russia and China helping Iran, which seems to be very clear and obvious, and that was his response. Now, this other clip that's going viral this morning is this one. This is Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, probably the most respected diplomat in the world, talking about this.
We can say that we are in the middle of a reshaping of the world order that will hopefully lead to the formation of a stable and fair multipolar world. But right now, this restructuring looks more like disruption in all spheres, and the fight for power across the world is fierce. And political scientists in Russia and in the world point at a whole number of manifestations that indicate a very challenging history of today's situation. We can.
Okay, so first, Hegseth makes it clear that we're very aware of what China and Russia are doing. China and Russia have not sent their navies to the Strait of Hormuz. They are not there to stand in direct opposition to President Trump. They are helping Iran, though. That's been a very clear narrative since the very beginning. And then you have Sergei Lavrov come out and say, we are in the middle of reshaping the world right now. It looks like disruption, but this is actually the emergence of the multipolar world. It's messy, it's chaotic, but that's what we're doing right now. And again, this is Iran's top ally, basically, right? Their top military ally, who is ostensibly suffering from, in a number of ways, from this war, because they're losing potentially credibility when it comes to their power projection against the West, the power projection against the U.S., their ability to protect their partners from U.S. adventurism when it comes to the military-industrial complex, and that matters when you look at all the other countries and their willingness to sign up for the multipolar world order, and this thing that China and Russia really have been pushing for years now. But what's happening here, I have a whole theory that I'll lay out next, but I want to play this clip because I've been talking about Iranian devolution for a while now, like a month or two now. And I haven't heard anybody else talk about it until now. And it was on Bannon's show yesterday. This former CIA analyst, Sam Faddis, listen to what he says. I'm going to play like 2 minutes of this.
Sam Faddis, the search for President Trump is applying the hammer constantly, but also trying to negotiate. When you shatter, as we have, there's no doubt, CENTCOM has shattered the regime's elite in the communications, and they've cut off the internet. You have different factions, and you've got guys in Pakistan talking about one thing, the Turks are talking about another, the Saudis are talking about another, and President Trump's trying to deal with that and find out who in Tehran can actually negotiate with. Walk me through how you think this process is going, and how can our intelligence services help the president?
Yeah, I don't think it's going particularly well, Steve. And I think issues. I mean, one is what you just talked about, which is we've gone heavy on decapitating these guys and killing everybody at a senior level who puts his head up. So there's first of all the question of who wants to put his head up, and even if they trust us, maybe do they trust the Israelis? Because the Israelis so far have shown that the president says one thing and then they go out and do whatever the hell they want. Then there's, of course, the part where they have moved to a completely decentralized command structure, which is how they're continuing to function. The 31 different commands that just are authorized to continue to fight on their own. In other words, we cut off the head, sort of. So, but now you want them to act as a unified entity. The last factor I would throw out is, why do they want to negotiate right now?
Okay. So again, this is the only person I've heard point this out. Like, I haven't heard anybody else use those exact words that
Pezeshkian did.
Pezeshkian. Outside of Iran, like the Iranian people, the Iranian officials have held press conferences. They were holding press conferences in August. Ali Larijani like publicly said, we're doing this. And
Pezeshkian since the war said that we have no control over everything now has been decentralized and we don't have control over this. They're doing their own things, and as kind of a way to continue this operation going. Yeah.
And so I just mentioned that the Pakistani ambassador was on Brett Baer last night, and he said he said we don't even really know who to talk to. It's hard to talk to these guys because who's in charge, right? Which is, and so when Sam Faddis says 31. There's 31 leaders now. That's a reference to the 31 governors. There's 31 different districts in Iran, just like we have 50 states. Each one has a governor. And in August of last year, after the end of the 12-day war, which was ended by President Trump, it was started by Israel, ended by Trump when he came out and said, it's over. Operation Midnight Hammer, done. And then Netanyahu sent more planes. Maybe he didn't believe Trump. And then Trump said, Netanyahu doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Send those planes back right now. And him and Netanyahu had a tense narrative moment. And then that, of course, was a pause. We heard Joe Kent tell Tucker that they knew he was in the DNI at that point. They knew in the Trump administration that the Israelis were coming back in the next 6 months and saying, we're ready for round two. We're going again. But that gave Iran the chance to do devolution, devolve their government, devolve their military. They removed the Ayatollah from the chain of command, meaning the Ayatollah doesn't matter anymore. So again, is the Ayatollah gay? Is he even real? Is he even alive? I mean, it doesn't matter because he doesn't have any power. And then they tore down the entire infrastructure, the hierarchy of the IRGC, their intel and their military chain of command, because as Ali Larijani explained, he said, we're concerned that Mossad has infiltrated us and that we can't trust people. So we're tearing the whole thing down and we're going to rebuild it from scratch. But for now, we have this thing called the Defense Council, which was put in the Constitution back in the 80s during the Iraq War, the Iraq-Iran War, and we're finally implementing it. And now all the governors, they now have all the authority to move forward. They can engage in bilateral trade deals. They can engage in bartering, like whatever they have to do. Because the three reasons they gave, again, was they were worried that there was going to be a decapitation event, that all the leadership was going to be killed. That was the whole reason they put it in the Constitution back during the Iraq War. They were worried Saddam Hussein was going to kill everybody in the leadership. The second reason is that they were worried that Mossad had infiltrated their and that they needed to tear that whole thing down, which is, again, I think Soleimani was Mossad. And then three, they said they were worried about the West hyperinflating the rial, their currency. And so they wanted to give the governors the ability to maneuver around that and navigate around a potential hypercurrency or hyperinflation situation, which did happen in December to January. And Scott Bessent admitted, yeah, that was us. We did that on purpose. So again, that all happens. We then get the riots of around New Year's, after Maduro gets arrested. And then that all gets thwarted. It all gets thwarted by the security services. They cut off the heads of these people, like figuratively, maybe literally, who knows? But they were all like Mossad CIA. That was Pompeo saying it. It was the Israelis saying it. Mark Levin, they were like, yeah, these are all like Mossad guys who are leading this thing. That gets thwarted, which is why there's not going to be a regime change. Like there's not going to be a color revolution now. Like there's not going to be an uprising against the government by the people because that was all thwarted. And now we have this warfare, this conflict between Iran and really it's against Israel. And Israel is getting rocked right now. I've been covering on my shows for the past week that all of the rhetoric that's being put out by local politicians who are going on television, like in tears because they're their towns are being destroyed by Hezbollah. When the IDF can't fight them. You saw Zamir, the IDF chief of staff, come out and say that the IDF was about to collapse. I don't know if you and Zach covered that yesterday, but they were like on the brink of collapse because they're being stretched too thin and too dependent on the reservists. They don't have enough full-time soldiers in their army, and they're being deployed now to Lebanon. Lebanon is now formally being annexed as a buffer zone, which means that they're expelling all Lebanese people from everything south of the Litani River. And they're saying that any structure is going to be destroyed because they're worried that Hezbollah is going to use it as a defensive fortification. So they're going to destroy every single building in southern Lebanon and expel all people north of the Litani River. And it's going to be a buffer zone between Israel and Lebanon. But that just means the Israeli settlers come in and build their shanty towns immediately. So we've seen this story before. So again, like the empire is growing, the Israeli empire is growing. Iran is pummeling them with missiles now. That is not even being mentioned by President Trump. President Trump is totally ignoring that situation. And my theory, generally speaking, is that a war is being waged not only against Israel, but also against the banking system, which is in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, the UAE. The UAE is being bombed as well, by the way. And Bannon has now been coming out for the past couple of days and saying, we need to seize all the assets of all these people who have all these criminals, including the Iranians, who have their assets hidden in Dubai. Because Dubai and Abu Dhabi are like the Switzerland of the Middle East. It's where people keep all their assets. It's like a big, Bannon calls it the Pirates Cove of the Middle East. It's where all the criminals and the crooks keep their stuff. And by the way, you know who else said that? Gustavo Petro, when he said, we need to go after the bankers, the cities he listed, he named Miami, he named Madrid, and he named Dubai. He said, those are the three places that you're going to find these cartels, these cartel banks, is Dubai. So Bannon's saying there's like $1 trillion worth of assets that need to be seized. By the way, a month ago, there was a story about this where the UAE actually said they're considering doing that. They're actually going to go after these assets, and they probably are going to seize them. So that seems to be what's happening. And I think that Iran is the proxy that is waging this war on behalf of Trump. That sounds insane to a lot of people. I think a lot of people look at it and like, there's just no way that's what's happening. Like of all the things that are happening, there's no way that that's the explanation. And my response to that is that's exactly why that is the best strategy, is because it's the least likely. It's a strategy that nobody would expect. And if you were to, I mean, there's an infinite number of ways that this thing could be actually playing out and happening. But if you were to just to consolidate it to 100 different possible explanations for what we're watching, 50 of them are Trump and Israel are actually taking on Iran. That's like the surface level optics are what they are. And then 50 of these possible explanations are Trump and Iran working together against whoever it is, whether it's the bankers in Dubai or Israel or the deep state or whatever it is. Basically what everyone's doing is they're discounting 50%, like half of the explanations, and saying there's no way it's any of those. It's got to be one of these. And even the analysts, the earnest MAGA analysts coming on to like Bannon's show, and people who I think really do truly support President Trump, their analysis is that President Trump has made a mistake and there's been a miscalculation. There's been a trick has been played on Trump. He has trusted the wrong people. He's jumped into something without understanding it. We now need to backpedal out of this thing because this is going downhill really, really quickly. And I just don't for a second believe that. I don't for a second believe that President Trump has been fooled, or he's been tricked, or he's been misled, or this is political miscalculation, or any of that. But I do agree with the analysis that surface level, it looks that way. It looks that like the price of oil is going up. It looks like it's going to go a lot higher soon. Optically, President Trump is seeking a off ramp. He's talking about how the Strait of Hormuz isn't even really a priority for us. Maybe we'll just walk away entirely and let somebody else deal with it. And meanwhile, Israel is being pummeled by missiles, and nobody's talking about that. So again, like just trying to wrap my head around what is the most plausible explanation for what we're actually watching. The idea that on some level, President Trump is working with China and Russia, and by extension, Iran, to reshape the world, as Lavrov just said. And this is going to cause disruption, and this is going to cause chaos, and this is going to cause confusion. And you know which entities are going to be the most freaked out by this and the most panic stricken and the most like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. The MSM, the establishment, the bankers, like all the people who are now screaming like red light, red light, red light. Those are the people who are basically going to suffer the most in a disruptive reshaping of the world. And so I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing, as like scary as some of it appears. I don't think that the official narrative we're being told is actually what's happening. It's got to be something different. And I also don't believe that President Trump has been fooled, misled, tricked, or made a mistake. And when he comes out and he says stuff like he spoke at the Saudi Investment Forum, the FII in Miami on Friday, the second time of the year he's spoken there. This is like the PIF and MBS hosting an investment forum, like the World Economic Forum kind of for investors in Miami. And Trump got up and like his opening statement was, you can ask me whatever you want. We can talk about sex. You want to talk about sex? Let's talk about sex. Like literally that's what he said. I'm quoting him word for word. That's what he said. And then he said, I bet you that MBS never thought he would be kissing my ass the way he is. He thought I was going to come in and just be like every other president and just be a loser. And he'd be like, yeah, whatever. We're not going to deal with whatever. We'll sell you oil, but we're not going to. He's kissing my ass now. He never thought how great I would be to him. And everyone's like, oh my God, Trump is like belittling the Saudi crown prince, this guy who's going to invest trillions of dollars in the U.S. economy. Trump only speaks that way about the crown prince is if they are like bros. That's the way that you would speak to your Marine buddies. That's the way that we talk to each other at Badlands. You don't talk that way about someone who you're like a business acquaintance with. And Trump is smart enough to know that. You only speak that way about someone if they're like a dear friend that you can rib like that in public, and they're not going to take it the wrong way. They're not going to be like personally insulted and say, you know what, I'm not investing trillions of dollars in your economy anymore because you just personally insulted me and by extension my entire kingdom. But again, I think there is so much like chaos and disruption, like narratively, that Trump is laying out there, confusion he's sowing, where nobody can really get their arms around what is actually happening. They can only guess and they can only predict. And the one thing that I haven't seen anybody consider is the idea that Trump's actually working with Iran in some capacity and is allowing them basically to pummel certain places in the Middle East, namely Israel, but also like parts of the UAE, et cetera. And I'll land it. Well, I don't know if I'm going to land it here, but I'll land this rant here. Let's go back to the press release of May 15th, 2018. This was 1 week after May 8th, 2018 was when President Trump formally pulled out of the Obama nuclear deal, right? The Iran nuclear deal. So 1 week later, U.S. Department of Treasury press release, Treasury targets Iran's central bank governor and an Iraqi bank moving millions of dollars for the IRGC Quds force. That's Soleimani's team. And if you scroll down here, it says right here, today's action cuts off Iran's use of a critical banking network and follows last Thursday's disruption of an IRGC QF associated currency exchange network procuring millions of dollars through the UAE. This is 2018. Calling out the UAE and saying the UAE says both actions seek to stifle Iran's ability to abuse the U.S. and regional financial systems. And so what they're accusing this guy Saif, who is the governor of this bank, of doing is laundering hundreds of billions or millions of dollars through these banks in Iraq and the UAE. And I went and looked it up, and these actions are basically happening in such a way that the people running the UAE wouldn't be able to stop it. This is all happening this is advanced money laundering, right? So it's not like the UAE, like MBZ and these guys who are running the UAE are like in on it necessarily. These are corporate banks. These are like independent institutions. Some of them are Islamic banks, by the way, operating under Islamic Sharia law, where they don't have usury, they don't do it like interest, but they have other rules that normal banks don't follow. So this is a very complicated, sticky situation. But if you look at this CannCon, May 15th, you then jump forward to August 6th. And this is from Reuters. Iran arrests, I think I pulled up the wrong one, this one. August 12th, 2018, Iran arrests six. This is 3 months later. Iran arrests 67 people for suspected financial crimes. One of the people arrested, by the way, was the vice president of the central bank. That was the nephew of the current foreign minister, Arakchi. He is later sentenced to 8 years in prison. They're accused of laundering dollars, specifically $160 billion US cash and 20 billion euros cash. And here is the subsequent reporting. October 2021, former Iranian central bank chief sentenced to 10 years on corruption charges. Now, this is Saif. And so I went and looked. There's no official announcement of this guy being arrested, but I went and looked at the details, and apparently in Iran, you don't have to have a formal announcement of arrest. In fact, they said because this was a high-ranking official, they would have kept that part quiet. But when he gets sentenced to 10 years in prison for mismanagement of dollars, and here's the report. State TV said Saif and one of his deputies, Ahmad Arakchi, who was sentenced to 8 years in jail, had provided, quote, illegal conditions for the mismanagement of about 160 million USD and 20 million euros. I'm sorry, I think I said billion, but I'm saying million. Billion was a misstatement. Because remember, what did Obama do as part of the deal? He sent $40 million US, right? And then 40 million, it was $400 million US and 40 million euros under the cover of darkness. That was what the report was. And then Trump comes out and sanctions Saif, the governor, and says, this guy is no good. This guy is laundering money. 2 months later, July, they remove him from that position. He's no longer the governor of the bank. A month later, his vice president and 67 underlings and like traders and stuff and financiers in Iran get rounded up for doing this stuff, the exact same thing that Trump is accusing them of doing. And then 3 years later, we get an official report that Saif, Arakchi, and a number of other people have been sentenced to like 8, 10, 12, 13 years in prison, depending on who you're looking at, for the exact same thing that Trump was accusing them of doing before any of this happened. This to me feels like coordination. This to me feels like the Trump administration and Iran were working together to bring down a network that Obama had sent hundreds of millions of dollars to, that were then being laundered through Iraqi banks and UAE banks, and were ultimately landing probably, I mean, according to Trump, he's saying this, in terrorist organization bank accounts. So the Obama administration gives money to the Central Bank of Iran. The Central Bank of Iran gives it to bankers in the Middle East. The bankers in the Middle East give it to the terrorists, right? We have now funded terrorism directly. And then we accuse Iran of being the number one state funder of terrorism. But wait a minute, if that cash came from US banks in Maryland and Virginia, that's what Trump just said like a month ago. He said that Obama emptied out every single bank in Virginia and Maryland to pay that, to send that money under the cover of darkness. That means we funded terrorism. And by the way, Joe Kent just did an interview on Friday where he said that we were directly, like the US, the CIA was directly working with Al Qaeda and ISIS to take down Assad. So it's like all of the signals are lining up that Trump and Iran were working together to take down this network that included US officials, Iranian officials, terrorist organizations. And that was during the first Trump administration. Now, what we're watching, it doesn't make sense to me. If that's true, it doesn't make sense to me that now they're like fighting a war against one another. That doesn't make any sense. And it also doesn't make sense that Trump was misled into doing this, and now he's made a huge mistake, and this is going to cost his whole legacy, and it's all over. Don't buy that either. So the alternative theory is that he is still working with these people against the same financiers that they were going after in this operation, which include UAE banks. But also, a side effect of this, or maybe the main intended effect, is Israel just getting pummeled and the IDF collapsing as Netanyahu is trying to build out the greater Israel empire. And then his military force is collapsing underneath him. And the whole thing, I think, just comes to a grinding halt. And we're probably going to see, in my opinion, Israel have to surrender to Iran in order to mitigate all this. To me, that ends this entire story, and that basically brings peace to the Middle East. I don't know what ends up happening with Israel. I don't know what ends up happening with Iran. I don't know what ends up happening with the region, but the story has been run out. Like the plot line has been brought to full resolution at that point. And we can't then go back and restart the Greater Israel Project, which I think was going to happen in 2026 or 2036 or 2046. In 20 years from now, you're not going to have President Trump. You're not going to have Putin. You're not going to have Xi. So you might as well warp speed this thing, bring it all the way up to right now and force it to happen in a very condensed timetable under controlled conditions where all the players involved are actually speaking to one another behind the scenes. And a lot of this stuff you're seeing is just performative, like soap opera, WrestleMania stuff.
Did you see Trump's 2 Truth Social posts from this morning?
I did not.
Hold on.
Ready for
this?
Let's see.
All of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number 1, buy from the U.S. We have plenty. Number 2, build up some delayed courage, go to the Strait, and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil, President DJT.
Okay, so again,
hold on, that's not it. That's not it.
Yeah, all right, let's see it.
Hold on. This one's very interesting. The country of France wouldn't let planes headed to Israel, loaded up with military supplies, fly over French territory. France has been very unhelpful with respect to the butcher of Iran, who has been successfully eliminated. The USA will remember President DJT. Now, the France one's interesting because the butcher of Iran is referring to Ibrahim Raisi.
Yeah.
And he's been dead since.
That's a really, really interesting point. That is a really interesting point. And by the way, Netanyahu is calling now for, he's like, hey, in order to like eliminate the need for the Strait of Hormuz, why don't we just all run our pipelines to Haifa, right? All the pipelines in the Middle East should just come to Haifa, and then we can just unload the oil in Israel, and that can, like, Israel can basically become the world supplier of oil. That would shift the entire Persian Gulf oil industry to Israel, right? And then they could have refineries, and that would make Israel the superpower of the Middle East, by the way. That's what he wants to happen. So that's what I think his end game is. At the same time, the president of Syria was in Europe yesterday offering the exact same thing. He's like, hey, we already have most of the pipelines from Iraq coming to us. Why don't we just bring all the pipelines from the Persian Gulf to Syria, and then we can become your steward of the center of oil in the Middle East, for the Mediterranean at least for Europe. So that's an interesting competition that's happening right there. But I go back to the metaphor that General Quast has used at the very beginning of all this at GART, where he said that geopolitics is the playground where the children all meet. And I think that is such a spot on way of looking at it, that all these children are very unique and they all have their own personalities and they're just trying to figure out how to get along. But if you have a small kid who has an older brother who's very strong that nobody wants to mess with, and that kid and that older brother's mom is making him protect the kid at all costs if anyone messes with him, after years and years and years, that little kid is going to walk around and own the playground and start bullying everybody else. And that little kid becomes the bully. To the extent that maybe the other kids in the playground don't even want to play with the older brother anymore because he's ostracized, just like the little brother is. How would the older brother mitigate that? I mean, I would think that a potential ploy could be going to one of these other kids that's getting bullied and being like, hey, I can't help you fight my little brother, and I can't step aside because my mom's going to get mad at me if I do. How about this? Next time he picks on you, you stand up to him. I'll intervene. You knock me out. I'll go down. And then you teach my little brother a lesson. And that way I can tell my mom that I stood up for my little brother. I got knocked out. And then you give him a nice little ass whooping. And maybe he'll stop messing with you after that, because that's really how kids resolve problems, right? If one kid becomes a bully, sooner or later, he's going to bully the wrong kid and he's going to get punched in the mouth. So that's kind of how I see this happening, because Trump can't come out and say Israel's a problem, because if he does, the Christian Zionists will crucify him. Like the Christian Zionists their heads will explode, right? And maybe even the Israeli diaspora might even bring down the banking system, bring down the financial system. I mean, there are all kinds of things that I think these people could do to us. The Israel lobby could do to us, could do to President Trump, maybe personally, that you would have to be a little more deceptive in how you go about this. And so President Trump coming out and acting like he is Israel's champion while Israel is getting the shit kicked out of it by Iran, that's, I think, a pretty compelling way to look at it.
So check this out. In addition to literally, calling out France, and I don't know what that was, talking about the butcher of Iran, Raisi being dead, in what was it, 2022 when his helicopter went down, 2023, whatever the case might be. But then going after the UK saying, hey, defend it yourself. We're not going to be there to protect you anymore. We're essentially sounds like he's saying NATO's on the fritz. This he posted after he posted that shot at the UK. Melania and I are pleased to announce that Their Majesties, the King and Queen of the UK, will visit the United States for a historic state visit April 27th and the 30th, which will include a beautiful banquet dinner at the White House on the evening of April 28th. The momentous occasion will be even more special this year as we commemorate the 250th anniversary of our great country. I look forward to spending time with the King, whom I greatly respect. It'll be terrific. So he takes shots at the UK. We're not going to be there for you anymore. Go down to the Strait, defend it yourself, get your own oil, or buy it from us. And oh, by the way, welcome to the state dinner that you're going to be at in next month or this month.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is Pete Hegseth was, I did see a clip where Pete Hegseth was like, NATO is useless. Like NATO is not helping us, like F NATO basically.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of side effects that are going to come out of this. One of them is NATO being basically dissolved. I could also see a situation where Trump and Putin speak. And Putin is like, look, I'll deal with Iran. They're my guys. Let me deal with them. You deal with Ukraine, though, because Ukraine is like, those are your guys.
Well, this would be the realigning of the multipolar world, like Lavrov said in the video earlier.
Yeah.
European Union, EU, NATO, or NATO countries, because outside of the United States, figure it out on your own, man. You guys, that's your region. You guys figure it out. You can buy oil from us, or you can get it from the Strait of Hormuz. But if you want it from the Strait of Hormuz, you better get your ass down there and take it, because we're not going to do it for you anymore.
Or don't figure it out. Don't figure it out and keep getting your ass kicked and keep getting punched in the mouth. Like keep going to the playground and running your mouth. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to get punched in the face. And that's not our problem, actually, if you get punched in the face because you're being a little jackass.
I will say this, and Ghost and I talked about this before the show. I got a strange message on X. I'm not going to say who it was. Huge account. We're talking 4 or 5 million plus followers, that basically was saying, hey, President Trump, and this is a full-blown 7,000 shekels per post aligned account, like full-blown Israeli flags and everything else in their account. And they sent a DM. It's not like I'm special or anything. They probably sent it to a whole bunch of people saying President Trump now is looking at sending troops into Iran, which should be a wet dream for the pro-Israel crowd, right? Trump sending troops into Iran. Yes, that's what we've been wanting this whole time. And he's like, it's a horrible idea and this will be so bad and everything else. And now I'm kind of sitting back. I was telling Ghost, I'm like, man, I got to kind of reassess whether or not sending troops into Iran is a good thing. Did you see what Aragchi said yesterday or over the weekend on NBC?
About what? Being ready for troops on the ground?
Yeah, they asked him, are you ready? And he's like, yeah. And the guy's like, wait, what? He's like, are you afraid that the U.S. is going to send troops in? He's like, no. He's like, you're not afraid? And he's like, no, we've been ready for this for a long time, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, so just to be clear, you're not afraid of U.S. military troops on the ground? He's like, no, but what I mean by that is it's not a continuation of the war. And I'm like, that's an escalation of the war, unless there's another reason for the troops to go in there. Is it to secure facilities and, as the changeover occurs, so that Iran can actually get their new government in place? I don't know.
Yeah.
But now that you have one of these huge accounts, incredibly pro-Zionist regime, telling me that ground troops going into Iran is a horrible idea, it's like that is counterintuitive to their entire
100%. 100%. And again, when I mentioned earlier, the 50 different possibilities, and I'm just using 50 as a number, but the infinite number of possibilities that could be Trump and Iran working together. But what does it actually look like? One of those possibilities is that there's a bad evil twin in Iran that needs to be dealt with. And maybe it's being dealt with right now, right? Maybe it's two different bad guys being like tricked into bombing the shit out of each other for a net positive for the world. It could be that too. That specific situation that you described to me, as I said to you before the show, I view that as the enemy, even like Mossad, understanding that the wedge issue to separate Trump from the base is to exploit this idea that Trump is basically a fool who has wandered into something he doesn't understand and is making political miscalculation after political miscalculation, and that they're going to exploit that even to the detriment of the Israeli war effort. And they're going to say, Trump's an idiot. Trump should have never done this. Trump shouldn't be doing this. Trump shouldn't be sending boots. I mean, I agree. Boots on the ground in Iran sounds terrible. Sounds like Iraq 2.0 all over again.
Absolutely.
Could be what you're saying. I'm not against that possibility, but I would not put it past Mossad to basically be like, this whole war was a disaster. Trump should have never done it. I can't believe he did it, especially if you go back to Trump's first take on it, which was maybe I forced Israel into this. Maybe I took the lead, pushed them into the the fighting cage, then locked the door, and I locked them in there with an animal that is just ripping them apart right now. And they're like, I can't believe Trump could do this. What an idiot. Why did he force us into this war? That's a possibility.
Yeah. All right. Stay tuned, guys. You're doing geopolitics with Ghost this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm going to do a pre-record because I'm taking my kids to the beach for spring break. So
Nice.
yeah. So we're leaving later this afternoon, this evening. So I'm going to pre-record it. It probably won't be a full 2 hours, but I'm going to do as much as I can with what I can. So.
All right, so be sure to check that out. Reaper Kitty, consider where the kid came from. Perfect throwaway. That community is notorious for it. I think that's referring to Robinson. Concur. I concur. I think he's 100% a patsy. 99%. Nothing, only Sith steal in absolutes, right? We got to.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Where is it? Where is it? I don't have it ready to go.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
99%. 99%. Jep863 Ghost, please share your thoughts on the big beautiful bat cave under the big beautiful ballroom. And are there any moats with sharks and lasers on their heads? Thanks for all you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, Trump literally said the military is building an enormous complex underneath this thing.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful monument. I mean,
until a lawsuit filed,
it's a beautiful monument. I mean, it's like looks like the Pantheon. I mean, it's a beautiful. It's a beautiful monument. And but Trump said there's a massive military complex going in underneath, and yeah, I mean that's probably has something to do with fifth generation warfare, I would assume.
Remember when Obama left the White House and then rented or bought a home in DC and had like millions of pounds of wires and fiber optics and everything put into it, all under secrecy? Trump's just like, I'm going to do it right under the White House when I leave. I'll build my little command center right under the White House. All right, Simple Sam 1779. Ghost, you need to add to your analysis that he might be an idiot. I don't know.
I mean, okay, but I've been studying this guy every day for the past 11 years. I've been studying him closely, and while he's human, so he's not perfect. I mean, of course, he is. Even his enemies describe him as like a political genius. So even the people on the MSM like recognize that Trump is a political genius. Love him or hate him, he has been able to read the tea leaves and has his finger on the pulse of what the country actually thinks. And if your assertion is that he's been this good up until now, but now has just done the one thing that he's always said would be a massive mistake, which is a big war with Iran that could lead to World War III. I just don't think he was misled into that. I'm open to alternative explanations, but the idea that he just like is an idiot and was tricked into doing this just doesn't track with everything else that I've discerned. So.
The problem is, Ghost, is you get emotional reactions like that. And I'm not saying that Simple Sam is having an emotional reaction, but the general consensus when I see people reacting like that is it's nothing more than an emotional reaction, and they don't actually have the intelligence to think about strategy, to think about the big picture. And I'm not saying Simple Sam is in this boat, but that's what I've gathered from people when I talk to them about this. Like, you bring up the Donroe Doctrine, the national security assessment that they put out. You bring up what Putin and Lavrov just said right there. They have no conception of these things, and you cannot form a logical, valid opinion about what's actually going on unless you have the context of these things, and they don't have that context. And so without that context, you can't form a logical, opinion about it. But
he's right, though, that like objectively we should maintain like all possibilities as life. Sure. But how much weight do you put on it? I mean, I put the smallest fraction of a percent on that being like the likely explanation. It doesn't mean I'm not going to say it's 100% impossible, but it just seems extremely unlikely. And these other alternative ideas just explain everything much more cleanly than, he's just stumbling into this. And this is the end of Trump, the end of MAGA, the end of the populist revolt against the deep state. I just don't believe that for a second.
Agreed. And then Simple Sam says, so Trump starts the fight, chickens out, and then needs others to clean up his mess. Clearly, it's election fraud that will cost the GOP in November and not this.
Well, yeah. I mean, if your assertion is that the Republican Party is the thing that's going to come save us, and that Donald Trump is beholden to the Republican Party and making sure the Republican Party wins enough votes in November to save us, I don't know. I have no idea what to tell you, because the Republican Party's in Disney World right now.
They just kicked us off Rumble, so we got to get out of here.
Yeah,
we're 10 minutes anyway. All right, see you guys later. We're out.
Patriots, the fight for truth doesn't stop at the screen. It's hitting the road again. Badlands Media is rolling into Nashville on April 9th through 12th for the next stop on the Great American Restoration Tour. Join your favorite Badlands hosts and like-minded Americans for 3 powerful days. Packed with unfiltered discussions, deep dive panels, and real debate. Hear the raw truth, ask the tough questions. No topic too hot, no question too bold. GART is where our community comes alive. Tickets are on sale now at badlandsmedia.tv/GART, where you can also grab a virtual pass and watch from home. Join us to question narratives and fight for America's future. Nashville's calling. The restoration continues. Get your passes today. See you in Music City.